Back in the early days of GLC, when it was first created a few years ago, grass was considered one of the strongest types. It had Rillaboom and Venusaur, and that combo, combined with the existence of Forest of Giant Plants, made grass an early frontrunner in the early days of GLC.
Evolution Incense. Go get Shinotic. Shinotic. Illuminate. Go get Thwaxter. Yeah, evolve into Thwaxter. You see it yet? Scoop up net. Boom. Put him back down. Do it again. Illuminate. Go get Rillaboom. Voltage speed, bro. Ban Tricky Jim. Ban Tricky Jim. Tricky Jim, boo. Tricky Jim, boo. Nobody wanted to see you do that.
Now, since those early days, a lot has changed in the landscape of GLC. Forest of Giant Plants was banned, which slowed down grass, while other types got faster. A lot of grass decks do rely on evolution support-based Pokemon, such as Roserade, Rillaboom, Venusaur, Cherim, Sawsbuck if you play that. The speed of the game has really picked up, and as a result, grass has fallen from grace from its early days at the top of the tier list.
So grass was pretty broken at the start of GLC when Forest of Giant Plants was legal. It was pretty nuts, but that got banned, so it's calmed down a little bit, and grass has always been kind of a good deck, you know, at least middle of the pack deck, because it's really strong, but you have to set up a lot of stage 2s, and it can kind of fumble that way and get behind.
Because any grass deck, if it plays the game, is going to feel extremely strong. The issue is how often you just end up with a bunch of stage 2s in hand and nothing else.
One thing that grass now has in the last couple months that I think can boost it up and make it closer to even with these fast-paced decks that dominate the GLC meta right now is Budew. Now, Budew is doing insane things in Standard. It's completely warping the meta around itself. You have to expect to face Budew if you're playing Standard. In GLC, however, I feel like it is a much more balanced card. It only has 30 HP, and you can only have one of them in your deck. One prize in GLC matters a lot more than it does in Standard. For example, you don't really mind giving up a single prize in Standard because you want to always be taking 2 prize KOs on rule box Pokemon like Pokemon EX and Pokemon V-Star. In GLC, a single prize matters a lot more.
Thanks to Budew, the stage 2 Rillaboom Venusaur deck has a lot more time to set up.
Do you think Budew changes grass's position in the tier list at all?
It certainly makes it better. I don't know about how much. It can win games if they just don't get to play their items. It's a very strong effect, but it's also a 30 HP basic. Most decks have a 1 energy attack that just knocks that out immediately. You still get a turn ahead with items, but if you don't capitalize on it correctly, it can hurt you.
Opinions are mixed on which version of grass is the best. It's not as common as something like Colorless, where I feel like a majority of people would answer that Turbo Colorless is the best archetype. Now, I'm a big fan of the archetype known as Rillasaur, which means your deck relies on a combination of Rillaboom and Venusaur to power up your attackers. A lot of other grass archetypes exist, such as Stage 1 Cherim and Eldegoss combos. There's the Turbo Wo-Chien deck. There's also a more recent control deck known as Egg Mill. Which grass archetype do you feel like is the strongest in the current state of GLC?
For me, I play the fastest grass in the West, which is a stage 1 kind of aggro build, and I think that deck is like by far my favorite deck, and it's a very strong deck. So to be able to keep up with the turbo decks is something, you know, to give points towards the faster grass deck. But if you can get set up with Rillaboom Venusaur, it takes the cake on that side. But it's all about the setup and if you can keep pace with the faster decks. But it's a close call, but I think I'm gonna have to give it to the stage 1 faster build.
Wo-Chien is sick.
Can you tell us about that Turbo Snail archetype?
If you have 3 cards left in your deck or less, it will do 120 damage to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon, and also 20 damage to the active, which does matter. Grass has a lot of tools to thin the deck between Eldegoss, the Grottle to search out Pokemon, and then with the Beautifly to draw on top of that, it's surprisingly easy to get to 3 cards left in the deck. I personally enjoy and have had the most success with the Turbo Snail deck and have felt the least bricky with it.
With all these wide-ranging archetypes, I personally am a big fan of Rillaboom Venusaur, so tonight I'm going to be playing that deck along with Budew and see how it does in my GLC tournament. Let's take a look at the deck list. Now these 4 Pokemon are your main engine. Of course you have Rillaboom and Venusaur for energy acceleration as well as energy double up. The Jungle Totem ability allows all of your basic grass energy to count as 2 energies at once, and Voltage Beat can search for 2 grass energy from your deck and attach them to one of your Pokemon. So your main goal is to get one or both of these set up throughout the course of the game to power up the attackers that you play. Roserade is an extremely important part of your engine with the Le Parfum ability. When you evolve Roserade, you can search your deck for any 1 card, and this is really the main consistency part of your deck, outside of Grottle, of course. Le Parfum allows you to find maybe a teammates after an early attack, and teammates can get you a rare candy and a Rillaboom. It can find you a research. It can find you, obviously, whatever you need in the moment to allow you to continue your setup or get attacking. Grottle has the Sun-Drenched Shell ability, so once per turn, you can search your deck for a grass Pokemon, and since this deck is all about evolving up your grass Pokemon, this is a must-have ability, and the Torterra also, of course, is an incredible attacker. And now here is the baby, Budew, with the Itchy Pollen attack, which says during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards. Now, it is a 30 HP basic with free retreat. Having a free retreat Pokemon is nice, especially if you're not going up against the spread deck. You can put this down as an easy pivot. A lot of your other Pokemon have such high retreat costs that the free retreat is valuable. But your main thing here is the Itchy Pollen, of course. When you're playing a deck that really relies on evolving up, Budew is the way to go. If you're going second on your first turn, you can lock your opponent out of items and hopefully slow them down from doing their own setup, getting an attack off. But you can easily buy 1 to 2 to sometimes 3 or 4 turns over the course of the match to allow you to continue to set up your own board. And once all of your evolutions are in play, the grass deck is extremely powerful and hard to deal with. The 30 HP can buy you, especially against something like a spread deck. That's a free prize for a lot of opponents, so you really have to be mindful of what you're going up against when you put Budew in play, and the value you will get out of Budew. I think Budew is very strong and should probably be played in almost every grass deck. These are the main attacking Pokemon that I play in this deck. You have your basic attackers in Zarude and Tapu Bulu. Repeated Whip does 20 more damage for each grass energy that is attached to Zarude, so for 3 energy it does 120. This attack combines well with the Venusaur ability because if you have only 2 energy attached to Zarude, it's basically 4 energy. You're doing 140 damage for only 2 energy attached to Zarude. And then Tapu Bulu is just a menace. Not a lot of basic Pokemon can do 220 damage, and it's even though it has such a high attack cost, again, that Venusaur ability really coming in clutch, or 2 turns of Rillaboom to power up this Tapu Bulu. 220 damage is just too good to not include in the deck. And one of my favorite Pokemon in the deck, this deck would not function nearly as well if you didn't have this beast in the deck. Torterra with 190 hit points. Obviously it evolves from Grottle with the Sun-Drenched Shell ability, so a lot of value in this evolving line. But once you have evolved a lot of Pokemon, Evopress can easily swing for 200 plus damage. Torterra has a whopping 190 HP as well, which puts it out of range of a lot of Pokemon that don't have a damage buff. Think of one of the strongest attackers in GLC, that Thumping Snore, Snorlax. That caps at 180 damage, unless they can find a muscle band or a powerful colorless energy. So Torterra is a great way to go 2 for 1 in prizes in the grass decks. And you'll find that most grass archetypes, not just stage 2, play the Torterra because the Grottle is so good and Torterra is such an amazing attacker. And one attacker I am more mixed on is this Bramblegast. It has a very strong ability. It gives plus 50 HP for each prize card your opponent has taken. So you really want to get it out as the game is winding down, maybe when they're 3 or prizes under. If your opponent has taken 4 prizes, Bramblegast has effectively 300 HP. Now, in my couple weeks of playing grass recently, I have found I've been going in with Bramblegast less and less. One reason is because Tapu Bulu is so good. 220 guaranteed damage is often safer than flipping coins for 80 damage. Bramblegast can easily go 2 for 1 in late game and is a great way to mount a comeback against a lot of decks, and that's why it has a spot right now. But I personally hate flipping coins for attacks, and unless Bramblegast has effectively 6 energies on it, 3 with Venusaur or even up to 6, I often don't want to go for it because whiffing an attack, even though you have such a high HP Pokemon, is often worse than just going in with Tapu Bulu. So I am mixed on Bramblegast. One benefit of Bramblegast though is that it is another evolution Pokemon that adds to Torterra's damage output. And here's the rest of the lineup. I play the 90 HP Ivysaur, so you can find it with Level Ball. Setup is the name of the game in the grass deck, so of course the 2 stadiums you play are going to help that game plan. Artisan to find basics, Turf Field to find evolutions. Here are all of your Pokemon Search item cards. We've got Level Ball, Heavy Ball, Ultra Ball, Nest Ball, Quick Ball, Hisuian Heavy Ball, Net Ball, Buddy Buddy Poffin, and Evolution Incense. Again, just want to go max consistency to find all your Pokemon. You do play Ball Guy in this list, and so I have opted to play Heavy Ball. These are all the Pokemon you can find off of Heavy Ball, and that's why I think it's worth it. 7 Pokemon able to be found off of Heavy Ball, including both of your Stage 2 Venusaur and Rillabooms, and Torterra, and of course Grottle. So Heavy Ball can often turn into Grottle and another Pokemon, or find that key Venusaur and Rillaboom. And also, again, like I said, we'll avoid coin flips. Don't play Timer Ball, play Heavy Ball instead. Here are the recovery cards you play: Ordinary Rod, Super Rod for both Pokemon and Energy, as well as Revitalizer. Now, you really want to keep track throughout the game of your energy counts and who you plan on attacking with and how many energies you need to make all those attacks happen and close out the game. So make sure you're always putting back enough energy with Ordinary Rod and Super Rod to make sure you can meet the high attack costs of your Pokemon, or even just have energy in deck to find with Rillaboom. Revitalizer, of course, is one of the most broken recovery cards in GLC. Put 2 grass Pokemon from the discard pile right into your hand. A lot of other types just have the Rescue Stretcher option, which only can put 1 into hand or 3 into deck, 2 directly to hand. Incredible. Now, here are the other items you play. Not a ton, you know, there's so much space taken up by those consistency cards. Scoop Up Net is here for the Roserade, because Roserade's ability can only be used once when it evolves. You can use Scoop Up Net to pick it up, put Roselia back down, and then you can use Roserade's ability again on the following turn. The only tool that I play is Float Stone. I did play Luxurious Cape for a while, but I really wanted to increase the consistency of my deck, so it did get cut. These are the draw supporters that I currently am playing. Taydenliza I really like as a supporter, especially because, like I said, you have so many heavy retreat cost guys that could get stuck, so the option to use it as a switch card is worth it. Professor's Research also is an amazing card. I feel like it can often be underplayed in GLC because people are afraid to discard their one-of resources, but don't be afraid, play Research. Drawing 7 cards is so good. You can afford to discard 1 or 2 things, even 2 or 3 things, in order to, like I said, you just want to get set up and if it requires drawing 7 more cards to give you the best odds of setting up, then you should play Research. And you can search it off of Dead Hand with Roserade and see 7 fresh cards. I'll quickly go through the remaining supporters here. Gladion is, I think, worth playing in this deck because you play so many evolution lines and your deck really wants all of them. Gladion can get you a specific card out of the prizes. If you Rillaboom or Venusaur is prized, you can use Roserade to search out Gladion and find it and get it into play. Boss and Guzma, once you have your board set up, just target down the biggest threats on your opponent's side. That's why you play both. And then after one of your Pokemon gets KO'd, Raihan is there because a lot of your opponents will try and target down your Venusaur, maybe, and if they target down your Venusaur, your energy effectively gets cut in half. So Raihan can be a good way to make up that difference, or you can use Raihan to attach an extra energy and then also go search out for Venusaur in your deck if you haven't found it yet. Raihan's a great supporter, and then teammates, of course, can find you key combinations like a Rare Candy evolution to get your game rolling. As for energy, I play 10 basic grass right now. I have in the past played 9 basic grass as well as 1 reversal energy. And reversal energy is a pretty strong card because as you're setting up, you kind of expect to go behind in prizes. And reversal energy will allow you to get an attack off with something like Torterra even before you have Rillaboom and Venusaur set up. I did cut it just to go for the full basic since I'm now playing the Budew. I figured I often want to go for that to try and buy some turns and maybe not get too far behind. But without the reversal, the Brambleghast definitely does feel worse because having that extra 3 coin flip on a single attachment is pretty strong. So I would consider cutting 1 basic energy for that reversal or even just a counter energy. So that is the grass deck I'm playing with. I'll have a link in the description as well for the digital list on Cardboard Warriors for you to check out. And let's see how my tournament goes tonight. My first round of the night against JD, playing his Special Whales water deck. JD did go first and only had an attachment to Articuno. Didn't have a great second turn either, only finding Sobble, while I was able to get pretty much my whole board set up with help from Zarude and Roserade. And then after that, I did decide to go in with that Budew and item lock JD, hoping to slow him down, prevent him from maybe finding a Drizzile or something like that. That was my hope, but he does find an energy off the top and has all these basics in hand after I Marnied him into them. Drizzile also is able to find the Parallel City, which I do hate to see at this point in the game. I have to decide between discarding my Turtwig or my Grookey. Roserade is always an easy discard off of an Avery or a Parallel City because it doesn't have any use anymore, and now you are able to recycle it, so it's actually almost welcome to discard the Roserade. But I decide to keep the Grookey since in this game my Torterra is prized. I am able to get into a Venusaur. JD is up 1 prize right now. I'm going to take my first prize of the game with that Zarude on that Articuno. Now JD does need to find an evolution of the Citadel off of this draw with Octillery, and unfortunately he whiffs it. Is just going to have to use Beacon for turn, so I'm very happy to see that. He does have a pretty strong board set up, but unfortunately just missing those evolutions and doesn't find the Inteleon to search it out or anything else like that. I'm just going to go ahead and knock out the active. And on JD's next turn, he's going to look again for that Cititan. Unfortunately, does not find it once more, has to just retreat into the Basculin and pass. And I am loving the position I'm in right now. I also have Guzma in hand. Thwackey comes down. Venusaur is in play. Tapu Bulu has 2 energies on it. And I'm going to use Guzma to target down the Drizzile in this situation and hope that it prevents JD from maybe finding another attack. Also, I know Cititan has 180 HP, which Tapu Bulu will do more than enough to knock out in a single hit. So I really just want to stop JD from finding the cards he needs and disrupting me as much as possible. So even though he will be able to attack this turn, he does find the Cititan finally. I just want him to not find the healing cards and things like that. So taking out the Inteleon, I think, was a good choice. I'm just going to go up with this Tapu Bulu. With the Venusaur on the bench, I already have enough damage. Already have enough energy attached to knock out this Cetitan. It has no tools attached. I'm also able to reestablish my board a bit. I get Zarude down with an energy and bench that Turtwig. And I'm going to knock out that Cetitan, and I only have 2 prizes remaining at this point. And now I am liking my chances now. I know the Wailord will be difficult to get through, but with my 2 prize lead, I know I have a couple turns to swing into it, but the Lake Acuity does come down, which is not a card that I play in my special whales list. It adds an extra layer of damage reduction. Wailord, here he comes in 240 damage with that special waves attack, and it's going to take Guzma off of the prizes, and this is a key turn in this match. So I promote Zarude, which with Venusaur in play, Rillaboom only 1 evolution away. You know, I can hopefully get a board state that'll allow me to 2-shot this Wailord, provided there's not a ton of healing. So I'm going to use Raihan to get an energy onto my Zarude, but I am down a ton of energy in play now. I have a lot of energy in the discard pile. I only have 1 energy left in the deck. So off of Raihan, I choose to go for Super Rod instead of finding the Rillaboom this turn, because I have outs to Rillaboom on the following turn with Arven. So I figured I'll use Raihan now, put energy back, and then on my next turn I can get Rillaboom into play, and I'll have plenty of energy in deck to attach with Rillaboom. But I really should have just grabbed the Rillaboom and used Voltage Beat for that single energy. I would have, with Venusaur in play, I would have been able to do 40 extra damage to this Wailord that only has 90 damage on it. And here JD is going to target down my Venusaur, so effectively cutting my energy in half. And now I am going to go in with Zarude once again. And had I gone with Rillaboom last turn and gone for Super Rod this turn, Zarude would have 3 energy on it now. I would use Arven to find Super Rod instead of the Rillaboom on this turn, and Zarude could have gotten up to 5 energy attached, which would have done enough between this turn and last turn to 2-shot the Wailord. But since I grabbed Super Rod off of the Raihan, I'm only able to get this Zarude up to 4 energies attached, as well as the 40 less damage I did on the previous turn. So I actually end up doing only another 90 damage to this Wailord, leaving it with 20 HP remaining. So I really just didn't think that math through quite clearly as it related to Venusaur being KO'd. It was not something I was really thinking. I knew he had Guzma, but I was not thinking very hard about that, how much that would change my math there. And you can see JD finds the Mallow and Lana after that as well. Is able to take out my Zarude, and I have Torterra in play now, but Evo Press is only going to be doing 100 damage, maybe 150 if I can find the Bramblegast, but unfortunately I just run out of steam. I don't have enough to deal with this Wailord. He is now a prize ahead. I just have to boss up this Basculin and hope he doesn't have retreat, but he does. JD takes it. Wailord is a menace. I definitely made the wrong decision there at the end in the heat of the moment. It was a great back and forth though, and yeah, the grass deck can definitely keep up with the special whales deck. I did beat JD with this deck when we played 2 weeks before this in the same matchup. Moving on to round 3 up against Alex playing Turbo Dark. I have a pretty good start going first. I have Buddy Poffin and Artisan to find Turtwig, Bulbasaur, and Zarude. And since it is dark and I'm scared of Hoopa, I decided to retreat into that Zarude. And Alex has a decent start of his own with a couple basics in hand. Discards the Buddy Poffin off of that Excavate because his hand actually does not have a good supporter in it. And also no energy, otherwise he has the Boss and Hoopa with the free retreat Sneasel. And thankfully I dodge a bullet there. I'm going to use Roserade now to search my deck for any card I want, and I'm just going to go for the Ball Guy to continue my setup. Grookey is in the prizes, so I do grab that Hisuian Heavy Ball, the other Heavy Ball to search out Grottle, and I'll get a Nest Ball as well. Sorry, a Net Ball. Net Ball can find me that basic energy on Zarude, which I can use to use Pack Call and find that Thwackey. So I am loving my board state right now. I know Alex did not play a supporter or attach an energy, so I'm not afraid too much right now. Alex does find a Guzzlord with a double colorless on it though. Uses Excavate to discard the Dark Claw because he still does not have a way to draw out of this hand or search evolutions or anything like that. He's just going to retreat into the Sableye and pass. Now on my side, I have Thwackey, Ivysaur, and Grottle all in play. And I'm going to search out Budew just to thin it out of my deck at this point, as well as a Bramblin with Pack Call. I also have no energy or other supporter to play. I believe I played a Tayton Liza and didn't find the energy I needed to keep going, but Slow and Steady wins the race. I'm not worried about getting set up, and once the grass deck is set up against Dark, and Alex does not play Wheezing to shut off abilities, it's a pretty strong matchup because my guys have high HP and hit hard, his guys have low HP and take more time to do big damage. Alex once again is going to use Boss's Orders to bring up my Ivysaur and hopefully stall out, but I have Escape Rope in hand. I'm going to be able to get into my own Torterra after also evolving into Rillaboom and attaching with Voltage Beat. He's going to sacrifice his Hoopa, and I take the first prize of the game there. And the reason I went up with Torterra is because I know that almost nothing that Alex can do would KO me at this point, and I'm scared of potentially a Guzzlord KO onto my Zarude if I attacked with that. But Alex is just going to opt to not use the TM Energize, just going to discard it. But he is going to use Disable to hopefully buy an extra turn and stop my Torterra from attacking once. But I also have the Guzma, and I'm going to target down that Guzzlord, of course, because that is his route back into the game. I'll use Voltage Beat to retreat my Roserade into my Torterra, and then I will knock out his Guzzlord. But a card like Guzzlord can always get back in the game with the help of something like Beast Ring and take multiple prizes, so Dark is never out of it because of that X factor. However, Alex is going to have to go in again with the Sableye, using Disable. I used Kuzma and I used Escape Rope, so surely I can't attack again this turn, but Torterra does have a second attack. I'm just going to have to use my Voltage Beat to put 4 energy onto Torterra, and I can use its second attack, Hammer In, instead to continue taking knockouts. Alex has already swung into this Torterra twice. Can he 3-hit KO it? We'll see. Alex will draw for turn, does find a Dark Patch. Now Alex plays the Foul Play Zoroark, which right now can copy Evo Press for 160. That's still not enough to do damage. He's just going to go in with the Sableye for 100 damage. That's going to be a 4-hit KO onto this Torterra. This thing is a menace. I only have 2 prizes remaining at this point. Sorry, 3 prizes remaining. I'm able to use Gladion to finally get my Venusaur that has been in the prizes this whole time. I'll continue attacking with Torterra. That's 4 prizes taken with Torterra, unanswered. And Alex is in the Struggle Bus. And that's going to be about a wrap on this game. Alex does, just for the sake of it, show me that he can still take multiple prizes with that Guzzlord. He did 4-hit KO my Torterra on the turn before, and is going to take 2 more prizes with this Guzzlord. It does go down to 3 prizes remaining, respectable, but that just shows you the sheer power of the grass deck once it gets set up. It can really overwhelm your opponent, Torterra especially going in early with big damage and big HP. Now going into round 4, I'm at a record of 2-1 up against Caleb playing a Dragon deck. I have the Budew, and I'm also getting to go second, so I'm looking forward to that turn 1 item lock. On Caleb's side, all he has is an attachment to his own Regidrago. He'll use Dragon's Horde ability to draw 1 card, but finds no other basic Pokemon. So I am really loving now, especially this Itchy Pollen. Now, I don't have the best setup on my turn 1. I just have Roselia and Tapu Bulu with an energy, so I'm really counting on this Itchy Pollen to carry me for a couple turns while I get the rest of my board set up. On Caleb's side, he was able to play a Marnie and find a few more basics, and thankfully that Marnie did help me a lot as well. He just had to pass no other energy attachments also, which I like to see. But I have Turffield Stadium to counter his Stormy Mountains, as well as a Nest Ball. Nest Ball can find me that Turtwig, and Turffield can find me that Roserade. Roserade allowed me to find a Professor's Research and find 7 new cards, but I find no other basics after that, so it's just another Itchy Pollen from me. Caleb is going to use Dragon's Horde and finds an Arven. And this is, again, the power of Budew. Arven here could find him Professor's Letter, it could find him TM Turbo Energize to get his board set up, could find him an Evolution Incense to find his Gabite, but whatever item he grabs, he won't be able to play thanks to Itchy Pollen. And yeah, it's just going to be another pass from Caleb. Budew really putting in work right now. Turffield also sticking around. I can find that Groddle. Groddle's Sun-Drenched Shell ability will allow me to continue to set up my board. I get Bulbasaur down and I attach to my Groddle. It's really costly to attach 4 energy to Tapu Bulu, so I'm spreading energy out right now while I while I set up this Venusaur. Over onto Caleb's side, he just has a pass again. He does put a counter energy onto this Raging Bolt over here. Expecting maybe to get knocked out, and he can return a KO with that Raging Bolt. And while I continue to set up my board, I find Ivysaur and Grookey. I'm going to use Torterra to target down that counter energy. Only 1 energy on his Regidrago currently, so I'm going to target down the double energy on the Raging Bolt and take my first prize of the game. And Torterra at 190 HP is out of range for most of the Dragon deck. Parallel City does come down, which does hurt a little bit against me, but I had the perfect discards in Budew and Roserade. Budew did its job, bought me the turns I needed to get my board set up. I mean, if that alone doesn't show you that Budew is worth a spot in this deck, I don't know what would. Caleb is able to fire off a strong attack this turn thanks to a teammate's double dragon energy on that Grandpa. Sorry, I get blank on these names so often. But of course it's not enough to knock out my Torterra, and I'm going to find Artisan to get my Zarude in play. I get a Thwackey evolved as well, but still no Venusaur, still no Rillaboom. But I take my second prize, and now Caleb is on the back foot. Still only 1 energy on that Drago. Does have the Gabite for the Dragon Call ability, can search out a Pokemon, but he's really hurting for energies and attachments right now since I took out both Double Dragon and Counter Energy at this point, which I was very happy about. It's a very strong start against a Dragon deck to do that. He is going to use his Sonic Slip ability while he attaches to his Regidrago. Sonic Slip will make him invincible this turn, and hopefully buy him a turn at this point. And since I can't do damage to him, I decide my best course of action is to recover that Budew and item lock him. I'm going to use a Float Stone to retreat into that Budew and use Itchy Pollen, and even though it'll do no damage to that Garchomp, it does prevent him from using items. And I'll also be able to preserve my Torterra in the back from a knockout from this Giant Fangs on the Regidrago. He does have an attachment to that Regidrago, gonna discard that Heavy Ball. Worthless now with his prizes face up. And nothing makes me happier than seeing that Caleb has to spend 3 of his energies on this Regidrago to knock out my 30 HP Budew. He's worked so hard to attach all those. I'm more than happy to see it go down. I'm going to promote Zarude to clean up this Regidrago. I've got my Rillaboom in play. I can get Roselia out once again as well. I'm going to preserve this Torterra because it can do a lot more damage than needed right now. Preserve it for something like that Garchomp with a little higher HP. And Caleb just is running lower on resources, has to spend a turn using TM Turbo Energize on the Tatsugiri onto this Raging Bolt at this point. And I think I only have 3 prizes remaining at this point. Caleb has 5, has only knocked out that Budew. I have Rillaboom, Venusaur, Tapu Bulu, Torterra, and Zarude are all ready to attack. I take my 4th prize of the game. I'm just trying to make sure we don't end up in a tie by playing too slow. So you see me take a prize there and help Caleb out by moving his Pokemon. Caleb's going to come up with that Raging Bolt. We'll be able to take a knockout, but at this point it is checkmate. I have so many Pokemon powered up in play and ready to go. And I'm going to take round 3 against Caleb. Sorry, round 4 against Caleb, going to a record of 3-1 on the night. 1 round left to go. You could really see the power of Budew in this round. Budew believers, rise up. Now we've got one final round, and again it is up against Dragon, Chris Scove on the right, obviously me on the left playing grass, and once again I get another Budew start. Chris's deck is a little different. We see him playing that Applin in the active, and Applin only has 40 HP. Now Chris, going first, has Guzma and Hala in hand, but just has to attach pass. Can't play any supporters yet. I love to see that, and I have a Grookey bench and a Roselia bench after a Titanize Shuffle draw, but unfortunately no other basics found. I'm going to use Itchy Pollen to prevent Chris from playing any of those items, and after a Titanize Shuffle of his own, Chris is going to be able to only find a Regidrago and attach for turn to it. Applin does have the Find a Friend attack, which can allow Chris to search his deck for one Pokemon and put it in his hand. So slow starts on both sides. I have Thwacky evolution on the bench and an attachment. I have Rillaboom in hand as well, but nothing else going on in my hand. So I'm just going to use Itchy Pollen once more, counting on Budew to buy me turns in this slower grass start, which is bound to happen in a 5-round night. Now Chris is going to bench that Gibble he found off of the Find His Friend, and Chris will play an Arven. And like I said in the last round, can't play any of those items that would have helped him, but that TM Turbo Energize is going to get slapped down and allow Chris a couple energy attachments, one fighting on the Gibble, one fire on the Regidrago. Over to my turn. The Applin only has 20 HP remaining. I have an evolution into Rillaboom of my own. I'm going to use Voltage Beat to put 2 grass energies onto that Rillaboom just so it's ready to go if needed. Also to thin my deck, hopefully have a better top deck. I do have another grass in hand, so I could attack with Rillaboom this turn if I wanted, but that would leave me very vulnerable. I don't have the best board state. I'm really, at this point, just debating whether I should Itchy Pollen or if I should go in with Rillaboom. I can't afford to go in with Rillaboom and get return KO'd, so I decide to use Itchy Pollen one more time. And if Chris cannot find the evolution to Applin, then I'll KO it with Budew. And if he retreats into something else, then I can KO it with Rillaboom, which would be a much more valuable knockout. Now, that's what Chris is weighing here. He's weighing whether or not he should preserve the Applin and go up with one of his other Pokemon. But I would love to knock out one of his other Pokemon with my Rillaboom. So Chris actually just decides to use Find a Friend again, gonna allow me to take the first knockout with Budew. Very slow start on both sides. These Tatanlizes did not treat us well, and I just top deck a grass there, unfortunately. Gabite is his find off of Find a Friend, so he will be able to use that ability on his next turn. And I take the first knockout with Budew. Itchy Pollen, item locked, 4 turns in a row, doing work. Thank you, Budew. Chris is going to go up with that Gibble, immediately evolve it into Gabite. Finds an Axew off the top deck as well. Now, Axew is a very strong Pokemon in Dragon now. Both that and its Stage 1 Evolution Fracture have an ability that allow it to basically never get gusted up to the active and KO'd until it's fully evolved. The Bite is going to search out that Tatsugiri. Chris really hoping to find something to save him. Has to retreat into the Tatsugiri, but he does find a Guzma and Hala, which will get him Stormy Mountains, U-turn board, and counter energy. Stormy Mountains will find him a Dreepy, and now Chris is cooking. Unfortunately, he did retreat already into the Tatsugiri, so won't be able to attack this turn. Sorry. Spoke a little too soon and I misremembered. Chris does attack this turn because he's going to take the knockout on Budew with that Tatsugiri's Surf attack. Counter energy, fulfilling that attack cost, preserving his more valuable Pokemon on the bench. So a pretty strong play from Chris there. And I'm forced to just go up with my Rillaboom and hope for the best. Gladion off the top. So I do have a supporter this turn, and I have to choose between a basic Pokemon with that Artisan or an Iono to help me draw on the next turn. And I opt to go for Iono this turn. Or I opt to grab Iono off of the prizes so I can find a new hand on the following turn. I'm really weighing it though, because like finding other basic Pokemon would be nice. But I opt to stick with the Iono. Now, I do have a Tapu Bulu, which I took off the prize cards with that Budew knockout. So it's something. I can start powering it up with Voltage Beat. Thankfully, Rillaboom is not my only threat on board now. But I really don't want to just take out this Tatsugiri with Rillaboom and get KO'd in return. Rillaboom is the only thing keeping me alive right now, or keeping me threatening anything in this game. So I actually decided to use Revitalizer to get Budew back and just item lock once again. And now that we're tied on prizes, that counter energy is shut off. He can't use Surf with Tatsugiri once more. He would have to retreat into something like that Regidrago. Now Chris does have a couple evolutions, which I don't love to see under the item lock. It's not a great situation. But now Chris has to weigh once more whether or not it's worth it to retreat into this Regidrago to get return KO'd by either Tapu Bulu or Rillaboom, or if he should just pass. And he decides to just pass, which I love. Does buy me another turn, so thank you, Budew. Did exactly what I needed it to in that moment. Allowed me to survive another turn, basically, and continue play the Iono I found off Gladion last turn, and hopefully find more basic Pokemon, which I do. I find Buddy Buddy Poffin, and I'm gonna get that Bulbasaur and that Turtwig, make my board a little more stable in the face of this Dragon deck. And now I'm gonna go up with my Tapu Bulu to keep up the prize trade. Budew did its job, and now that I have enough basics in play to to get the game really moving, I won't just want to race in the prize trade. So take my second prize of the game. Chris goes up with his U-turn board on the Dracloak, and Chris also is able to fully power up that Haxorus, so that can easily take one-shot knockouts on my Rillaboom, or on basically anything. It does 230 damage for 2 energy. Chris decides to drop a luxurious cape on his Regidrago, which I am surprised to see because it is one of his lower HP Pokemon in play. Putting it on something like that Haxorus could be a big difference maker, but he maybe wants it to survive a turn, hope I can't KO it this turn, take a hit. It is a pretty strong play here. I'm able to get Grottle and Ivysaur down, but I do have Escape Rope to get around the Regidrago. Since it has 10 damage on it now, it has exactly 220 HP remaining, which means it can get one-shot by Tapu Bulu for 2 prizes at some point in the game. So I'm thinking about that. I don't want to 2-shot the Regidrago when Tapu Bulu can clean it up for 2 prizes later. So I decided to Escape Rope around it, even though it is fully powered up. I just want to, be able to take it out later with the Tapu Bulu. I'm forced to attack with my Rillaboom at this point, not before I get 2 energy onto my Grottle. I go down to 3 prize cards remaining. Chris has 4. Haxorus will come up and knock out my Rillaboom. He has to discard the top 3 cards of his deck, and I love to see teammates get discarded, but nothing else too crucial. Going up with Budew with that free retreat. Now I am able to get Venusaur set up, as well as my Torterra, but unfortunately I'm only doing 150 damage with Evo Press, which is not enough to knock him out. So I actually use my second attack Hammer In to do 160 Haxorus has 170 HP, so I'm only 10 damage short. So I was really bummed to see that. Hoped that there was a way I could piece together an attack with my Tapu Bulu, but unfortunately there was not. But since it only has 10 HP remaining, Chris does tie up the prize trade at 2-2. Budew, once again, taking 2 knockouts this game, one of the MVPs. I'm going to be able to bump his stadium, put his U-turn board back in his hand, and set him to only 2 cards with an N. 2 cards off of N, as well as item locked with a knockout. Thank you, Budew. He does have a lot of his energy in play, and he has Dragon Call Gabite. And at this point, time was about to be called, so we were playing very fast. And Chris decides to use Dragon Call to search out that Garchomp. And he could use Sonic Slip this turn and hope I don't have a Gust around him. Is going to use Cynthia and Caitlyn to get back a teammates into his hand. And I think in the heat of the moment, we're at 2-2 prizes. Chris has his Regidrago active. Can use Dragon's Horde. Decides to attach to the Druddigon as well. And he actually swings in with the Regidrago. And since I have Versus Seeker in hand for Raihan, 220 damage is just enough to knock out that Regidrago with the Luxurious Cape, like I said, for 2 prizes. Even though Chris had gone down to 1 prize remaining, Chris mentioned to me it was a little covered behind the Regidrago. He just misplayed and forgot it was on there, unfortunately. And we were trying to play fast, so a little bit of a flub there at the end to not go in with the Sonic Slip Garchomp. Unfortunate misplay, but we take those. We ended up going 4-1 tonight with the grass deck, and there was plenty of times where Budew definitely kept me in the game, both against Chris in that final round, as well as in the previous round against Dragon. So Budew definitely pulled his weight. It's definitely not something you go for every game, but the games where you need it, it's extremely helpful. So one card I am iffy on is that Bramblegast. I've played the deck for 3 weeks now in this new season, and I have only used Bramblegast maybe 1 or 2 times. I didn't attack with it at all tonight, and I didn't attack with it at all the last time I played it, so that's 9 games where I haven't used the Bramblegast at all. And maybe I'm not utilizing it well enough, but having to rely on the coin flips is kind of difficult. I think you could add in some other consistency cards, maybe like Pokegear, or even go for the Sawsbuck line, so that at least you have some onboard draw, because a lot of the games you see that I end up having kind of a bricked hand. So one thing I might change going forward might be to swap out that Bramblegast for that Sawsbuck just for a little bit of draw. Sawsbuck is good not just for the draw, but because it's also another evolution line to boost Torterra's damage output with Evo Press, so at least you're not losing that extra 50 damage with Evo Press from cutting that Bramblegast. But yeah, what would you change in the grass deck? What is your favorite way to play grass? What is the best way to play grass? Let me know. I personally think grass is a middle of the pack deck. I think it's very strong, and I think Budew does help a lot, and I do think it can win games, it can win tournaments. It can be difficult for your opponent to be with, but it does not have the same consistency that setup decks like Water or Psychic have. So I did end up finishing second place with the grass deck. I finished second place with the grass deck probably 3 times this year, 3 times since January. So I am performing consistently with it. I just end up losing a bit. And in that match against JD, like I said, I definitely misplayed at the end, and I wonder if the outcome would have been different. I was ahead. That was my game to win. If you're looking for a deck that, like Alex said, is pretty straightforward to play, I would recommend this grass deck. I do think it's easier to play than the Cherrim Eldegoss line. I also do think it's a bit stronger. Turbo Snail is definitely the most difficult version of the deck to play because you have to keep track of so many resources. But if you want to give it a go, it is a really cool deck, a really fun deck, and you can check out a video of mine from a couple weeks ago featuring Alex playing that Turbo Snail deck for a badge win against myself. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, leave a comment for what deck you want me to review next, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.